Well, the Iranian regime is gasping for air as the joint US-Israeli assault on the nation continues.
So we're in a very strong position now, and their leadership is just rapidly going. Everybody that seems to want to be a leader, they end up dead.
Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has served CNN anchor Caitlin Collins on a plate after the journalist ranted about the criticism of the Liberal media's coverage of the deaths of 6 US service personnel in the Iranian strikes.
But Hexeth was complaining that it was front-page news about these 6 service members who were killed.
That's not what the secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the secretary meant, and you know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not. We've never had a Secretary of Defense who cares more.
Drones get through or tragic things happen. It's front-page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad.
Yeah,
as you know, we cover
press
the deaths of U.S. service members under every president.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN. And the Secretary of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them, and your network has hardly ever probably reported on that.
Joining me now is Wrong Speak Publishing founder Adam B. Coleman. Adam, good to see you. Thanks for joining me. What is with the Liberal media's obsession with demonising the president, even during an historic moment in time when a threat to the West has now been taken out?
Yeah, well, I mean, old habits die hard. They can't help themselves but to frame just about anything that he does as being negative. All common sense goes out the window when your only objective is to attack the president. This is not to say that Donald Trump shouldn't have some sort of criticisms about how the war is even started in the first place. He's the president of the United States, so he's not immune from criticism. But when one particular media outlet, let's say CNN, for example, 99% of the time publishes commentary that is explicitly negative towards the president, they have a bias. In the same way, if I publish 99% of commentary against the Democrats, I guess I have a bias as well. Right, but they are unwilling to acknowledge these things. They think that they're arbiters of truth, and they're not.
No, they're certainly not. And in the end, they have to be objective. I mean, that is the role of an impartial news organisation. And none of them ever show any sort of media coverage on this in an objective manner. These are the comments the CNN journalist was referring to by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Have a look.
This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality. The terms of this war will be set by us at every step.
Oh, I thought they were pretty fair comments. He also said this. Have a listen.
Leader of the unit who attempted to assassinate President Trump has been hunted down and killed. Iran tried to kill President Trump, and President Trump got the last laugh. Now, this is not a mission accomplished.
Adam, I thought those comments were strong. They were straight to the point. In the end, he is head of that department, and he has got to be strong in his commentary. But the left go after him. They attack him and the administration. What does it say about the agenda?
Yeah, the agenda is to go after Trump in any sort of way and go after anyone who's attached to Trump in his administration. I mean, what he said was relatively rational. I get if you tried to, like what Caitlin Collins was trying to do, take that one little snippet and pretend that he has no moral compass, no feelings about the death of any service member as a service member himself. I think it's a very disingenuous look at things. What he's actually saying is the way that they're engaging minimizes casualty. She's not understanding that perspective. So once again, this is a heavy bias to try to find something wrong with actually a situation that could be far worse with a reckless president who's barely alive and can't even walk downstairs.
Well, spot on, exactly. I'm interested to get your views on the polling. There was one that came out a few days ago. It said 1 in 4 Americans, a majority, of course, Republicans, say they approve of the US military strikes on Iran. The national survey by Reuters Ipsos indicates about half believe Trump is too willing to use military force. 27% said they approve. 43% disapprove, nearly 30% not sure. Carolyn Levitt says Donald Trump has support. Have a listen.
Does the president believe the country supports the actions that he's taken so far in Iran?
I think he does, and I think the president knows the country is smart enough to read past many of the fake news headlines produced by people in this room that this action was unjustifiable. Again, this is a rogue terrorist regime that has been threatening the United States, our allies, and our people for 47 years.
Adam, I'm interested to get your thoughts. How have the strikes been received over in the US?
You know, it's interesting. It seems to be mixed, and it's not necessarily left or right. You know, I'm in my early 40s. I still remember, you know, if we just go into Iraq, we'll just stop everything, and if we go into Afghanistan, we'll fix everything. And that became what seemingly what we would call like forever wars, where it just continuous occupation. So a lot of Americans are very war hesitant. Any sort of battle or any sort of military action, we just become very hesitant of moving forward. But what's happening here is different. So I'm generally not pro-war just for the sake of war. I'm pro-diplomacy. But what's happened here is that diplomacy failed. From what I can tell, diplomacy failed when it came to Iran, and they were trying to develop nuclear weapons. And so Donald Trump is the one president, as a lame duck president, he'll be out in a few years and doesn't care. And so he's going to move forward, but he's going to move forward with the intention of not having boots in the ground. And so I think that is the most important part, to minimize human casualties coming from our side.
Yep, I completely agree. He's going forward, you know, with or without the approval, basically. Which actually brings me to my next topic. Where is the international community? Because you'll recall Keir Starmer copped a real shellacking, as we like to say here in Australia, by Donald Trump when he said, well, he's no Winston Churchill. And now the UK PM has doubled down on his criticism of the strikes. Have a listen.
The protection of UK nationals is our #1 priority. And we're taking action to reduce the threat, with planes in the sky in the region, intercepting incoming strikes, deploying more capability to Cyprus, and allowing US planes to use UK bases to take out Iran's capability to strike. What I was not prepared to do on Saturday was for the UK to join a war unless I was satisfied there was a lawful basis and a viable, thought-through plan. That remains my position.
Adam, where are America's allies?
Well, America's allies, many of them have the same Trump derangement syndrome as everybody else here on the political left. But even more so, you know, if I'm to be very blunt, much of the leadership that resides in Europe is filled with weak men who are in charge. These are people who don't have the stomach to say the unpopular thing that needs to be said. They don't go against the grain whatsoever. They don't stand up for anything. They bend at anyone's will. And so I cannot be surprised that they would not stand up for an ally in the United States. And I'm sure some of them are butthurt about tariffs and Trump seemingly not, you know, going with whatever the deal they had in the past and the status quo and challenging them. So, you know, none of this surprises me. Keir Starmer, I've always seen him as a weak man just in general. But this is par for the course when it comes to European leadership. So, you know, we'll see if they do something if Iran starts really going after UK facilities throughout the world. We'll see about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be watching that one closely. Now, look, I've got to ask you about this. A woke student has been brutally mocked after saying that she and her LGBT friend want to move to Iran and get away from Donald Trump. Have a look.
I think that people have misconceptions about religion, especially with Muslims and Islamic regions.
I was not expecting you to be so pro the Ayatollah and pro dictator.
Well, yeah, we have a dictator in our own country.
I have a challenge for you. We will buy you a ticket, a one-way ticket to Iran.
We really?
Would you go? Would you take that?
Yeah.
Are you part of the LGBTQ community at all?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go with her? Do you want to bring your boyfriend?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Well, where to start, Adam? Where to begin? I wonder how that would go down in Tehran.
You know, this sounds like luxury beliefs. I would question if they even have a passport. You know, when you spend your life secluded in American corners, complaining about the most mundane stuff that has happened to you, God forbid the bus is a little bit late. God forbid the person you voted for didn't get into office. You know, God forbid that you experience some sort of minute difficulty that is the most harmful thing that any human being can actually go through. And they have no clue about the oppression in other countries whatsoever, whether it's Iran or any other nation. So these are people who are functionally illiterate about the world. They know nothing about real oppression. They know nothing about such things, yet they live in a country filled with immigrants who escape it, who come here. And even though they may not have passports, never talk to these people, never inquire as to, hey, why did you risk your life to come here? Why did you uproot your life to come to the United States? And if they did, they'd realize that there is something special about this nation, but they won't.
No, they won't. I mean, they would rather go over to Iran under a regime before it was toppled that literally was shooting its own citizens on the street, shoot to kill. Honestly, you're right, they've got no clue. Before we let you go, Adam, California taxpayers have been footing the bill for Kamala Harris's security team as she tours the nation promoting her book, and this is on top of her failed $1 billion presidential campaign.
Yeah, this doesn't surprise me that she's using taxpayer money. This is what California politicians do. They use taxpayer money. I mean, I don't know how. I have friends who live in California, and I ask myself, you know, how are they able to do it? Every which way they get taxed to death, and they have politicians like Kamala Harris finding some sort of way to legitimize getting some sort of protection to go around the country. You know, none of this surprises me, especially coming from Democrat politicians out of Cali.
No, nothing shocks me either as well when it comes to Kamala Harris. She never ceases to amaze, that's for sure. Adam B. Coleman, nice to catch up. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you.